Greetings. I want to thank all of you for taking time from your busy schedules to be a part of this group work. Everyone adds their quota of energy, and it demonstrates the potency of group life as we move forward into the age of Aquarius. I'd like to thank the Moya School for the opportunity to share and be a part of their wonderful programs, with additional thanks to Michael and BL and Rose, our hosts and technical advisors and assistants, without which nothing would happen. Okay, as you can see, we're going to be going deeply into visualization with lots of really cool animations and symbols, with particular emphasis on the torus, triangles, and cycles, and how they all, although different areas of creative expression, have common links. So before we begin, I just want to point out that this presentation is based on this quote, as well as all the others that I've done in this series. And I won't read the entire quote, but for any new people who have come, DK is stating here that into the next century, which is of course what he's referring to 2000 and after, that this work, his presentation, his work that he gave, will be superseded next century by a newer and more adequate teaching. Now, once again, the seminal teachings remain the same, but how they're presented is very, very important for a more modern and sophisticated disciple. We've discussed these newer truths for which DK was responsible to transmit, and we're going to focus more on number 2 and 2C, which you can see at the bottom, where DK states that his work included a presentation of the newer types of meditation with its emphasis upon visualization and the use of the creative imagination. And if you study any ancient world traditions, spiritually, or even modern ones, the deeper you go, the more emphasis is placed on the ability to visualize and to bring into reality that which is hidden. A few quick quotes by the Tibetan that will sort of frame what's coming. Through the practice of the power of visualization, the third eye is developed. The forms visualized and the ideas and abstractions which are in the process mentally clothed and vehicled are pictured a few inches from the third eye. It is the knowledge of this which causes the Eastern yogi to speak of concentration upon the tip of the nose. Behind this misleading phrase, a great truth is veiled. When we look at these images and symbols and also the animations, if the viewer periodically closes their eyes and attempts to visualize without straining what they're presently looking at physically, it can take the invocation, it can take the alignment, it can help bring in to focus what that symbol or animation is veiling. And you can do it intermittently. And a lot of people here are already doing this automatically. But I mention it because simply viewing a static symbol or even an animation sort of passively can be very effective, but it's much more potent when you, as the observer, draw it up onto the high mental plane. That's where the real magic takes place. And also keep in mind that visualization activates the pineal gland. And we all know the importance of that as we evolve and grow. Now, we're going to begin with cycles. And visualization is very important with cycles because a cycle is a foreknowledge of what is to come, and it's used in every department of the spiritual world. Astrology in particular, the ability to know what's coming around into your chart, what influences, what you're experiencing right now, and then what's departing. And we'll get into three-dimensional charts a little further. Now, what you're looking at here is also a cycle, a series of cycles, but they're done in vibrational loops. And we're going to look at cycles from many different points of view, and they can be slightly different, but they all are attempting to reveal some inner truth. Now, here's another one, and this, I can't recall if it was done by Walter Poulin or Stephen Douglas Pugh. They're both amazing recorders of cycles. And without going into this extensively, this one chart, because it really warrants a complete presentation, you can see certain rays are emphasized: ray 2, 3, 4, and ray 7. And this is how the masters work. This is how they, as energy pours through them from higher levels, precipitate these cyclic unfoldments. And they're impulsed from higher levels, but they can be modified according to the needs of the time. The fifth ray is a good example. The fifth ray is now coming into its potency and ascendancy because it's a fifth root race, fourth round, fifth root race. However, it has been rumored that because of the overdevelopment of the fifth ray, the masters are trying to bring more of the higher aspect of the fifth ray in. And yes, we need the lower mind to computate and analyze and distill. But if you look at world conditions right now, it doesn't take a prophet to figure out that one of the problems is that the lower mind and the astral body are being stimulated way beyond their ability to harmoniously deal with current events. And we'll get into that a little later. Now, here's another beautiful invoking a three-dimensional image of a cyclic symbol, a 250,000 year period. And you have the seven major constellations. There's many more that are affecting us right now, but those are the 7 key ones, with particular emphasis on the Great Bear, Sirius, and the Pleiades. But they come, they spiral out of the unknown deity at the center, veiled by Alcyone, and they bring their contribution and gifts cyclically into the evolution of humanity and each one of us independently. Now we're going to do an animation, but to help qualify what that animation is all about, and it may be a little deceptive at first because there's sort of a slapstick comedy that the video starts, and you're going to say, wow, this is a little different. But please hang in there and you'll see there's a particular reason for it. So, cycles and spheres. This cosmic center in turn forms part of a great wheel till to the eye of the illuminated seer, the entire vault of heaven is seen to be in motion. All the constellations, viewing them as a whole, are impelled in one direction. That's actually a quote by DK. The old commentary expresses this obscure truth as follows. The one wheel turns, one turn alone is made, and every sphere and suns of all degrees follow its course. Within the wheel, forming that wheel, are all the lesser wheels from the first to the 10th dimension. These, in their cyclic turn, hold in their spheres of force other in lesser wheels. Yet many suns compose the cosmic one, wheels within wheels, spheres within spheres. Each pursue his course and attracts or rejects his brother, and yet cannot escape from the encircling arms of the mother. It will be therefore be apparent that the power of man to conceive of these whirling constellations, to measure their interaction, and to realize their essential unity is not as yet great enough. Now, granted, we all have to go these different initiations when we're talking about dimensions to the 10th to understand the full impact of this quote. We, nevertheless, individually and as a group, when these wheels are put into graphic form and we study them as symbols and as an animation that we're going to share next, it can be very evocative because it gives you a sense of a larger mosaic, like a hologram or a fractal. So just relax and ease into this, and if a little of the technicalities of it at the latter part are difficult to fully comprehend, the visuals explain the majority of it.
Donuts.
I think we all know what I'm getting at. The donut, aka the torus, also known mathematically as Hopf vibrations or vortex rings. A vortex ring, also called a toroidal vortex, is a torus-shaped vortex in a fluid, that is, a region where the fluid mostly spins around an imaginary axis line that forms a closed loop. The dominant flow in a vortex ring is said to be toroidal, more precisely, poloidal. Let's start with do at the root note in a musical scale.
That will bring us back to do, oh, 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 do!
It starts with do, and it all leads back to do. Now, just like leavened bread acting like yeast rising, let's expand on this topic.
Time to make the donuts.
Generally, it takes 3 things to make dough: liquid, medium, and expander. The liquid would be the water, as magnetohydrodynamics. The flour would be the medium, life, matter, organisms. And the yeast would be the expander, the sun, stellar energy, or the source star. Now, why are we talking about this? Let's figure out how this all goes together. You have do, the base of the music scale. You have do not, the torus. You have do or set, a forest of torus, or the fundamental first principle geometries of magnetohydrodynamics. And you have Theodorian roots, self-organizing scaffolding of spectra in local star systems. It all starts with donuts nested inside of themselves, or for the sake of science, we will call them toruses. What we're going to attempt to do here is describe donuts or toruses on all scales, whilst we explore donuts in myriad academic fields at the same time. We'll start with toruses in astronomy and space. How are Birkeland currents formed? Concentric circles nesting is what gives off the initial Bessel function from the sun, and this Bessel function repeating is what builds up the recursions or recursive nature of fractal patterns that we observe in reality. The recursions of these dilating nested toruses is what builds up the subsequent size and ratios of the double-layered sheaths that make up the body of Birkeland currents. So the collimated structure of Birkeland currents is literally composed by counter-rotating toruses. What's more is that this is how you get the helicity and double helical filaments that are observed everywhere in stellar formations. The helical filaments are a byproduct of the dilating toroidal nodes progressively expanding via projective geometry. That all sounds well and good, but how is matter birthed out of the sun from ionized gases? What is the self-organizing principle for this? Mainstream science will have you believe that matter cannot be created nor destroyed, but indeed, matter is created and self-organizes in specific pathways. In fact, the Doherty set proofs that matter organizes according to a scalable metric of a process called Markland convection. Energy literally comes from the sun and self-organizes in these collimated sheaths, and it is all being held up by nested donuts. A wheel within a wheel, with rims and spokes high and low, inside and out. So if everything is composed or seems to be composed of toruses and helices, it makes sense that there would be artists, philosophers, and scientists describing this reality that Don Scott, Christian Birkeland, Roger Penrose, the Doherty set, and Gorian Markland are presenting before us. And indeed, there is. Take, for example, William Thomson, who became better known as Lord Kelvin. Kelvin first conjectured that atoms might be vortices in the ether that pervades space. There's many more examples of donuts in space, including the Van Allen belts at the planetary scale. At the solar scale, we have the Hall cloud or Kuiper belt. At the galactic scale, we have ring galaxies. At the intergalactic scale, we have Herbig-Haro objects, which clearly demonstrate cavitation. Cavitation is even scaffolded upon toroidal induction. Then you also have Roger Penrose with his twistor theories. Some donuts in math are referred to as hop vibrations. According to the Doherty set, the entirety of everything is composed of hierarchical and lowerarchical nested torus. Is there a scientific theory proposed that matches my findings? Yes, there is. And it all matches up with what Lord Kelvin was proposing. Today, we have incredible intellects like Dr. Vladimir Ginsburg. His series of books is phenomenal and lays down the math of a helical and toroidal construction of our universe like no one else ever has. Here is a quote from Ginsburg as we pan through some of his work. The torus and the helix unique properties provide them with a capability to be the prime elements of nature, and that capacity, their potential role in nature, would be comparable with the role of the DNA double helices discovered by James Watson and Francis Crick in 1953. The DNA double helices contain genetic codes defining the properties of both organic entities and living organisms, whereas both the torus and helix contain genetic codes defining the properties of matter and radiation entities of the universe. Also similar are the locations of these codes. The genetic codes of DNA are located inside the cells of all organic entities and the living organisms, whereas the genetic codes of toruses and helices reside inside all elementary matter and radiation particles, the building blocks of the universe. The donut in biology. The dynamic dilating torus even plays a fundamental role in our souls. You might have heard the saying, "The eyes are the window to the soul." Now, what is the shape of an eye? The torus. So the torus is technically the gate to our soul. In fact, every sound that comes out of our mouths is a torus. Even baby babble is exercising the torus, because the larynx is a series of 3 sphincters which are themselves toroidal muscles. The lips are also a torus. The tongue can be thought of as the center of the torus, arranging the sounds of the chorus of the toruses. Letters in the Hebrew alphabet are all derived from a rotating torus, as the Muru Foundation shows. Birds, water spiders, fish, all use the vortex ring. We have to spend some time on Dr. Gabriel Kaliman. I will now read a quote by him while we look at some of his work, which happens to translate perfectly to my last Thunderbolts video, Magnetohydrodynamics. The transformation of the original concentric circles and regular polygons, along with the emergence of cyclospiraling centripetal and centrifugal currents, accompanying the dynamics of symmetrical waves propagated in the fluid subject to vibration, demonstrates the close connection between the periodic time division and the geometric space structuring. Fluid matter thus becomes standing wave and therefore animated geometry. Vibrations, as the fluctuation in time and space, perpetually propagated stimulus in the elastic medium becomes visible once with the penetration into the liquid corpus, which takes over, structuring itself in surprising standing geometries. Matter-liquid or liquid-matter, a permissive receptacle of spatial-temporal fluctuations of pressure depression, constructively modulates the harmonic interferences in the fluid mass, which thus becomes a symmetric structure animated by vibration. And this is talking about cymatics. The resulting geometries are formed on the scale of different ascending, descending frequencies, like a complex vibrational language that surprisingly interferes with ancestral symbolic sources. Therefore, the circle becomes the common source of planar polygonal successive series, the triangular, square, pentagonal symmetry, which tends to n radial spokes, just as in the 3-dimensional, the fluid sphere becomes the primordial matrix, giving rise to regular polyhedra that oscillate in the cuboctahedron, icosahedron, dodecahedron, polyhedral complementaries, etc. Therefore, standing concentric circles become polygons from increasing noise intensity, while the sphere delivers polyhedral alternating oscillations. Vibrationally stimulated fluid, spheres, unify the indissoluble link between polyhedral antipodes as intermediate morphological stages of polyhedral structures, couples. More precisely, the liquid sphere becomes a cube, and the cube becomes an octahedron. The alternation fluctuating with the acoustic stimulus, frequency. The torus is even prevalent in dancing. Our fingers dancing with mudras is steering and playing with donuts and tornadoes, steering ether and energy in many different directions and modalities. I hope it is clear that the donut, or the center of a donut, is the pillar of the Jed, as the Jedi pillar and the subsequent Tori are always seen on the pillars, just as the Dorji and the Vajra. We've just skimmed the surface of how prevalent the torus or donut is on all scales. We could dive into the orbitals of hydrogen atoms and so much more, but for now, I think this is sufficient to digest and integrate deeper into the two-way living, pulsating vortex-based universe and out of the paradigm of the simulation. I hope it seems apparent that the Doherty set and the electric universe go hand in hand, describing what brilliant minds all throughout history have been masterfully depicting through art, cymatics, science, math, religion, philosophy, and yes, even something as simple and delightful as pastry.
Excellent. I apologize for the technicality of this animation, but it's very important to understand how at this time historically there's a crossover from the esoteric sciences, which have always known these deep mysteries, over to conventional science. And just as a simple example, in the study of cymatics, we can understand what DK meant when he said that the new Aquarian age is going to be dominated by the use of sound, not only physically, but also on spiritual levels to create a new civilization. And he hinted at this in this video when he outlined that sound creates form. And as a practical example, when you speak, you're actually creating forms, even though they may not be visible. And these forms go out and they affect your environment, the people around which you live and in the world. And it's also, and we're going to have an opportunity very shortly for any feedback or questions on that video, that this idea of reoccurring scalable metrics is really about hierarchy. And just as there are hierarchies of all kinds of different things down here in the material plane, there are, as we know, hierarchies of masters and energies and rays and planes. And they all can be understood more fully when you use the law of correspondence, or what DK called the law of analogy. If you understand, and you can look at the 7 sacred planets here, if you can imagine that each one of us is in one of those groups and subgroups, it will determine so much about our contributions in service and our evolution. And each color is linked spherically through a torus. You're actually looking at the planetary torus, but it's sort of seen in a linear way with the 7 sacred planetary logoi, which are toruses, and the subgroups. So excellent. Thank you for your patience with that video. He goes from The Simpsons all the way to some very, very technical stuff. So we're now going to open it for any questions that people have concerning that video. Any questions or additions?
Okay, we got a couple of comments. Andy says it is an excellent proof that DK was always bringing this awesome reality to the fore. Love it.
Excellent. Wheels within wheels, spheres within spheres. These are quotes straight from Cosmic Fire in many of the other Tibetan's wonderful books. And here you have a very scientific individual repeating that on a lower scale.
And then Geronimo, I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong. He says, why apologize? Technicality is not needed. Technicality is not needed occultism or the development of the higher mind. But if it is indeed not needed, then I take your apology.
No apology needed. Go
and
ahead.
I just want to say, we will have these clips that Duane is showing us. We will have them available with the recordings. So you'll be able to go back and it's one of those things that may need a couple of viewings to sink fully in.
Yeah.
Although The Simpsons was very clear. No.
Donut. No, the gentleman's comment is entirely correct. However, I have found that some of these teachings are so obscure and so arcane that it's good to have a little humility and a little goodwill when you're trying to communicate them or even understand them. But thank you, you're entirely correct.
Sandra says, what is the name of that video and how can I get it? Well, we'll post it with the recording. So
thank you.
What was the name of it again? Yeah, it's got an official name.
Let's skip back a slide so I don't, yes.
Thunderbolts Donuts.
Yeah, it's found at the Thunderbolt site and it'll be under Buddy James because he regularly contributes. Okay, good. Any additional comments or questions?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I've just barely started. Okay. Diana says, as sound creates form and we are able to hear certain sounds of our solar system or beyond, perhaps we could, through the sound of each constellation, identify its dynamism or geometrical kinetics that would have application to medicine. Slide shown at the beginning.
Absolutely. That's a wonderful and very well articulated statement that the problem with many spiritual groups is that they divide the material realm from the spiritual. And as an occultist, we know that the material forms are just the spiritual energies in their lowest form. And if we can follow them back to their source, and what are the attributes? Color, sound, light, vibration, heat, geometry, and then what we do now with our personality ray and our soul rays, we will do with the group ray and the rays of the planetary logoi, at least the sacred ones. And then in time, we will register what DK calls tune the etheric ear to even sounds emanating from outside of our solar system. Thank you, Diana. That was excellent.
And then that reminds me of the NASA put out the sounds of the planets, and you can actually, on the NASA website, you can listen to the sounds that each of the planets make. It's very fascinating. One of their satellites went through and had a audio recorder, and amazing stuff. Okay. Anyway, Catherine, I'll see if I can find the link for that and put it in the
Thank
comments in
you.
a minute here. Catherine says it was striking to see the language and correspondences that he highlighted.
Yes, and you can tell that this gentleman is very much aware of the etheric, and he alludes to it. He doesn't go into too extensively because that might cause some concern. He's trying to share this with other scientists, and so I think he handles it very well.
Michael has posted the direct link in the chat for everybody. Rose asks, can there be examples of what higher manifestations of the fifth ray would be?
Well, that's an excellent question. And keep in mind that the fifth ray has 7 subplanes, and the first 3 relate to the concrete mind. The third, which is sort of the crossover point, is now awakening the disciple to the higher mind, and the upper 3 are, and I'm speaking only on the mental level here, they lead to the mind of God. In other words, deity has a plan, and this plan is much more than just reading about it in a book. There are these prototypes that are they're created in mental matter that is very, very high and very elevated. And I'll give you an example. The lower fifth ray is perfect for taking things apart and putting them together, but often lacks the ability to see that even that is only a small cog in a huge wheel or a huge energy source. Now, the fifth ray, the higher mind, is those 3 upper subplanes. That the solar angel is a fifth ray entity. It is also, it expresses abstract mind, and it expresses Budai and Atma, the 3 primary aspects of the monad, but only a step down version. So the glory of the 5th root race will be seen when it can get into those upper areas of the 5th ray. And I think what this gentleman, Buddy, just did is an example of that. It's all based on the lower mind, but he's alluding to multidimensional realities, even if he doesn't specifically word it in that way.
Okay, thank you. And then Magda says, can you please confirm the parallelism? Mercury, Sirius, primordial Buddha, Hermes, disciple of Manu, together with Zarathustra, initiating the first post-Atlantic civilization, Paleo-Indian.
You know, that's a question beyond my pay grade. I'm going to throw it out to the group. Would anybody like to tackle that? It's a beautiful correspondence.
Well, I'll move on and then we'll see if somebody is ready to tackle that. Dana
Excellent.
says, Pleiades gongs are tuned to the frequency of the planets.
Yes, and if anyone has been fortunate enough to be present when Dana is doing her magical work ceremony, it is utterly profound. And this is the result of constant application of the spiritual laws brought right down onto the material plane and demonstrated through music.
Heidi says what Diana is talking about, vibrational medicine, which can be induced by sound that is not obstructed in the vehicles. When there is attachment to the past forms, the new ones are blocked from entering the consciousness.
Yes, in esoteric healing, illness and disease are the result of the inhibited soul life. And when you can know where the error lies, when you look at when you look at a person clairvoyantly and you can see what centers are activated, which triangles are in motion, and see what is either A, overstimulated, which paradoxically can bring disease too, or understimulated, which needs to have an additional intervention by either the person's soul or and by the healer to remove that congestion, that blockage. No, that's a very important addition to esoteric healing. Thank you.
And then Anna sent a really pretty picture. It's hard to describe, but everyone can blow it up and look at it. It's
Excellent.
really pretty.
What we have here is a comment with it.
I don't think there is a comment with it. It's a man meditating and the antakarana going up, and it's in the middle of a torus. I don't know if you can look at it and then blow it up. It's in the.
I can see it beautifully, and it is exquisite. And it shows two counter-rotating vortices. And there's every sphere has an inlet and an exit. And if you can imagine what you're looking at, there are 7. And each one interfaces the other, much like the skin of an onion. And when, as a meditating disciple, looking at this picture, you are able to correctly build the antakarana, what you do technically is you create a vortex. And a vortex creates a vacuum. And it's that vacuum that pulls higher subatomic substance down from the next highest torrid. In other words, humanity lives in the outer periphery of these lower, grosser torrids. But as you learn to meditate using your unique rays, personality, soul ray, and you learn the techniques for building the 6 stages, you become the white magician. You become the occult scientist that now doesn't really have to rely on outside stimulation, but is drawing all of that reservoir or wealth of energy from within their own soul body, and then, of course, the master, and then the planetary logos. So this image, however simplistic, shows that dynamic. Thank you, Anna.
Rose says invocation and evocation.
Yes.
And Geronimo says, is there a difference between the clairvoyance that DK mentions and what the third eye enables?
Yes, because higher clairvoyance and clairaudience, which is the goal of, no, I shouldn't say that, is the result of awakening the Ajna center, which is controlled by the 4th and 5th rays. So to go back to a previous statement, the 5th ray in its higher aspect is not really fully integrated into until the third initiation, where the ajna center is fully awakened. And many people, when you say the word clairaudience and clairvoyance, they have this jerk knee reaction. Oh, I read somewhere that DK said that's highly dangerous. Yes, if you deliberately penetrate into the lower astral and mental realms, you can have problems. But if these psychic powers develop organically, naturally, through your evolutionary development, you should know how to work with them. And that'll be a part of the new Aquarian teachings, not suppressing psychic phenomena because somebody taught you 20 years back that, oh, that's all astral, it's all lower mental stuff. It all depends on the subplane you're working with. Thank you. Here we go, quantum entanglement.
Right. From Anne Veronica. And it says, for the first time ever, quantum entangled photons were captured in real time. These photons are intentional filters of their incredible data. Modern science is coming full circle back to what the ancients knew and spoke of.
Beautiful. And I love that image. And we can see the parallel between that and the yin and the yang, the positive and the negative, and many, many other polarities. But what is fascinating about this is that even though it's one organism, it has two rotating parts. But even within those distinctly different rotating parts, the other one exists. In other words, this is why when you study the rays and the planes, you have to take into consideration when dealing with sound and color, as an example, that each ray has a predominant color, sound, or geometric form that expresses it, but it has all the others embryonically and latently contained within it because it's not a chart like dishes stacked one upon the other. It's a hologram. It's a fractal reality. And this is what you will experience in deep meditation. You just won't be able to pin it down to a few words. Excellent. Thank you.
Let me see. Greg says, is the difference between higher and this is the difference between higher and lower psychism. It's what you were describing earlier.
Yes.
And then Geronimo says, I thought the third eye is the eye created by the magnetic field of the crown chakra and ajna chakra and the pineal and pituitary glands.
Well, it depends maybe on what tradition you study, but there are triangles. In other words, I pointed out that the Ajna Center was opened at the third initiation. However, there are many triangles that precede that. And to be a little more technical, the Ajna Center is stimulated by the Alta Major Center and the descending monadic energy or the crown. So again, there may be different schools that say different things, but this is what Blavatsky and Bailey point out.
Oh, hold on a minute here. They're going faster than I can keep track of them. Greg says, learning how to raise our consciousness out of the lower desire-based nature qualities of psychism is to its reflective expression of the higher soul expression is the key to understanding the difference for all of us between lower and higher
Beautiful.
psychism.
Beautiful differentiation. Thank you, Greg.
And Joe wants to know, why does the 7 sacred planets show Neptune twice?
Well, I'm not an esoteric astrologer, but there's one that's sort of obvious, and that is Neptune, A, is a sacred planet amongst the other 6 in our solar system. But Neptune is also the synthesizing, one of the 3 synthesizing planets, along with Saturn and Uranus, I believe. And so it is very, very advanced and is key. It also expresses the second ray. Neptune, we think of the sixth ray, and the sixth ray has many fine qualities when it's expressed from the upper subplanes of the sixth ray, but uh, it also expresses the second ray.
Just wanted to add that, it's everything that you said. And, DK always gives us all these different correspondences that we have to think of. And Ray 2 it is associated with the sun and Jupiter. And the sun can be said to be veiled by Neptune as the heart of the sun. So there's another correspondence there.
Excellent.
And, last year at the conference, earlier this year, we went through what Michael identified as the rays of the planets. And between Michael and DK, they gave us a lot of hints, and Neptune's physical ray was said to be a ray 2. So there's a lot of correspondences in there that go along with everything that you've just said and that you show here.
Excellent addition. I love that clarity. Thank you, BL.
Greg says DK also emphasizes that all initiations can only happen on the mental plane.
Well, I would say that's true. However, I would modify it slightly and say that the first two initiations are only embryonically taken on the mental plane. They're the initiations on the threshold. And it's not until the third initiation you're really thinking clearly, because you're under the impression of the soul and its higher mental capacity to direct and guide you. But that's an important thing that Greg is saying here, because the higher initiations cannot take place until you are mentally polarized.
I think I'm out. I think I caught everybody, and that I'm out of
Okay,
comments for the moment.
well then we'll skip to the next slide.
I spoke too soon.
Okay,
Greg says, yes, that's exactly what I meant. They may appear to happen on the lower planes, but are felt in the mental plane.
yes, excellent. Thank you, Greg. Okay, what you're looking at here is multiple spheres, and they nest. And that was a key concept that was brought out in our video, that there's a hierarchy, and these hierarchies are not separated. They are joined and they coexist through geometry, color, sound, vibration, and a host of other important aspects. And when you get into the study of the Platonic solids, we have to realize that all the Platonic solids, which express different levels of reality going all the way back to Plato and even before him, that they all link. If you could see all the Platonic solids done up in halftones, each one fitting into the next, it's quite a revelation. And they just didn't have the means visually to do that back in those days. Okay, let's go to the next. Okay, now the next animation is, to me, absolutely off the charts in its ability to stimulate the etheric body or even the higher centers. And I wish I could say this is something that I created. It's something I stumbled across, like a number of the animations that I share. And if anybody knows who's the original artist, please share it or bring it forth, because it is a masterpiece. And what I've been able to do is take this animation and parallel it with what DK is saying here. And this is actually sort of a paraphrase of DK. The first part is a direct quote, but the rest is somewhat of a paraphrase. Okay. Finally, there is the monadic flame divine. This embodies the highest vibration of which the monad is capable, is governed by the law of synthesis, and is the cause of the forward progressive movement of the evolving jiva slash soul. Each monad that cycles in from higher levels has three expressions we call the spiritual triad, or Atma, Buddhi, and Manas. This higher triad has its lower correspondences on soul levels and is referred often to as the higher mind, the son of mind, and the lower mind. The soul triad of forces just mentioned has its lower correspondence on the physical plane through the student and their three personality or periodic vehicles of the physical etheric ray, the astral ray, and the concrete mind ray. These 7 types of spiritual triads come in and out of expression in cyclic waves that can span millions of years as they flash forth in a cyclic rhythmic cadence that will be symbolized in the next animation. So imagine when we do this that you are seeing the cyclic inflow of the monads expressed through an upper triad and a lower triad, and that you'll see as it opens the blue monads, because we're in a second ray solar system, and they of course have an affinity, so they cycle in first. And that's why DK states that the second ray monads are usually move more quickly than the first or third ray monads. Okay, enough with the technicalities. Take a deep breath, relax, and just move into this. keeping in mind, as the quote from DK indicated, the monad is a flame, and it flashes forth as it descends down through the ethers into its triadic and causal body. And watching this rhythmically shoot up and down, you can see how, on a very cosmic level, how there's this in-breath and out-breath. There is this rhythm, and the triangles shoot down as they come into incarnation, and then the triangle, with its growth and its added knowledge from having descended into matter, shoot up. And if there's any comments or questions, feel free to share it.
Maria says the artist is Annette Cantor, and
Deuter, yes, Garden of the Gods. Magnificent. And when color can be coordinated with sound, you have the two creating additional stimulation and far more potency. Okay, if there's no questions or shares, we will move forward, and we're now going to take the idea of cycles into geometry.
Hold it. We're typing. Heidi says that is the harmonics of the negative and positive charges.
Yes, involution, evolution. All done through the law of sacrifice. And even though we know a greater life form must intervene, and I mean that in an occult way, not in a personality way, intervene and help the lower unit of life reach a higher level, that higher unit, although temporarily sacrificing its bodies of flame and coming down to those lower levels, nevertheless gains the experience. So when it abstracts, it is now more vibrant and more luminous than before its descent. That's a very important concept that's often overlooked. Now, this descent is not done because, oh, if I sacrifice myself in this type of service, I'm going to reap some benefit later on. It's not that simple. Every sacrifice brings its own rewards, occultly speaking.
And then we got several more comments here. Heidi adds, exactly, that is magnificent in its continuance of the wholeness of life. But before that, we had, let me see, Joe said, I believe the image can be both mentally and feelingly experienced.
Yes, and we want to do both through the higher subplanes of the mental and the emotional, because one of the curious paradoxes of the evolution of the rays is that the highest aspect of the astral plane, when you look at it as a sphere or as a vortex, is the lowest aspect of the Buddhic plane. We have all these divisions in our studies and in our teachings occultly, and it's not just the Tibetan and Blavatsky, it's hundreds of other valuable contributors. But when you look at evolution and initiation organically, you see it's more seamless. The lower mind to the higher mind to the mind of God, the astral plane to the Buddhic plane, and then eventually to the monadic plane. These two streams operate with different Davic and angelic forces. And this is why it's hard to go through initiation, because if you're undergoing the first initiation, it's more masculine energies. So it's stimulation of the heart, but it's sacral to the throat to the higher head centers. Second initiation, it's the lower emotions going to the higher emotions and then to the heart. Two different streams, but as somebody demonstrated beautifully with that yin yang symbol, each one has inherently the other, but during a certain cycle, it will be dominated by one more than the other. Go ahead.
Oh, Anna says findings of quantum physics about our universe being made up of an interconnected, unbroken wholeness, examples of non-locality phenomena are the observer effect, implying that consciousness underlies all reality, has striking parallels with our ancient esoteric concepts, that all reality is the manifestation of an infinite singularity, which some choose to call source and most others call God.
Beautiful. It's as poetic as it is occultly accurate. And thank you, Anna, for your many posts, because they're beautifully crafted and they are such beautiful teaching tools.
And then after Anna's post was when Heidi said exactly that is magnificent in its continuance of the wholeness of the life. I thought she was responding to you talking about her comment earlier, but it sounds to me now like she was actually responding to what Anna said. So
Let me
anyway,
just
sorry
share
if I
one comment before we go to the next one. The magnificence is in the eye of the observer, where they are situated in time and space, where they are historically, where they are geographically. This image, these animations merely stimulate what each person out there is recognizing within themselves. They're not recognizing something within me or something even within the artwork. Now, I understand this seems very contradictory to many of my earlier statements, but the magnificence is in the eye that recognizes, they sense some part of themselves in these images, in these words, and very powerfully in the animations. So thank you.
Okay, and then Greg says, are these animations that you were using calibrated in a sense to the Earth's vibrational frequency of 7.83 hertz or cycles per second?
I would say yes. However, it's not done deliberately for this reason. These are actually some of the secrets of the new externalizing Aquarian ashrams. And it's more along the 7th and 5th ray line than, say, the 246. And there are certain colors that vibrate at certain frequencies. There are certain geometric forms that vibrate at certain frequencies. And when you calibrate the notes with the color and sound, it's incredibly powerful. It's like putting a rocket launcher on your evolutionary development. And I said yes, because a lot of this happens spontaneously. In other words, there are some I approach that, there are others I just let the observer pick it out. In other words, if you play Duder or a number of other artists, they have these sacred chords, and that's why they're so popular and they're so evocative, but they just happen, maybe not by chance, but by synchronicity, and the observer will notice that. They'll say, oh, I really liked this part, but you know what? There was a place where when it hit a certain note or a certain color or a certain shift, and bang, it nailed me, because you feel it. You feel in your bodies. You feel heat in your chakra centers. And you feel like, wow, this is worth taking some time to participate in, because everything we do here is nothing more than a mirror of what's going on with you right now in different ways. Okay, we're going to go to the animation, and this is the cycles, keeping in mind they're all spherical, and we are going to see it sort of on a linear level, but they're the cycles of Mercury and Jupiter and the Earth rotating around the sun, and the geometry it creates, because cycles have a geometric form as well as color and sound. Okay, any comments on that exquisite mosaic? The word tessellation comes to mind if you've ever visited these beautiful cathedrals here in Europe or in these Islamic countries. You look up and see this web, like Indra's web of exquisite interrelationships of energies. Any comments on that animation? Okay, well then let's.
I was looking for the website for the planetary system. I forget what it's called. That
Well, if you
Antonella
have a link,
does.
that would be wonderful, because there's probably 25 all different expressions of different planets as they go around the sun.
Right, right. And they have them on there, and it's so beautiful. Like the five-pointed star that Venus does, and
Yes.
um, and I'll see if I can find it. I'm not pulling it up right now, but I
Well,
think that's what it's called, the
you'd inject it,
planetarysystem.org.
and
Yeah, the planetarysystem.org. I'll put it in the thing, because in there somewhere, it's got some really great stuff in there, but it also has the just like you did there with the Earth and the Sun for the other planets. Okay. Maria says the mind of God is beauty.
yes, that is so true. And often in the New Age, we get this: the mind is the slayer of the real. And it's all context. Yes, the lower mind can slay the real. However, it might be more appropriate to say the undisciplined mind slays the real, because even the lower mind, for all of its limitations, is the springboard to the abstract mind. You just have to know how to disconnect from it and how to go into those higher. That's what the whole manual of Raja Yoga is all about, the teachings. And Maria mentioned the beauty of God's mind. Thank you, Maria.
And Lenny says, I realize on which ray is my monad. Thank you.
Excellent.
Joe says, go back one image. If we can blend from 1 to 2 and vice versa, we can also follow the figure 8, Christ, and blend all 7 rays, or probably any 2 levels.
Yes. The flower of life is a perfect example of that. It has this web of Vesica Pisces where you have a circle that interfaces with another circle or sphere or torus. And this is the crossover point. In other words, how does one ray go from one to another, or one plane to another, or one principle? It does by the elasticity of the Deva evolution, and the figure 8 demonstrates that beautifully. If you're on the lower ebb of the 8, assuming it's standing upright, and it can be sideways too, because there is no in and out, up and down as we understand it. But let's just say hypothetically, the figure 8 is standing in front of you. When you're in the lower arc of the bottom of the 8, you may be dealing with a lesser potent energy, but that potent energy has its reflection in the upper part of the 8. And all you got to do is travel through the gate of initiation, which is the crossover point where the lower part of the 8 goes up to the upper part of the 8, and then on infinitely. Good, thank you. Okay, here is now we're going to talk about triangles and the idea that triangles can face a sphere. You know, we think of triangles, 3 points, 3 different energies. We circulate the fire around the 3 points, and we do goodwill, right, human relations, and send it out with our group brothers and sisters, either in total or individually with our smaller groups. The torrid is a cascading, built-in series of triangles. And the next animation is going to demonstrate that. It's going to take 3 rotating forces. Imagine it's the Trinity. And as they travel faster and faster, this is where the study of motion comes in. You have cyclic motion, rotary motion, cyclic spiral, and progressive. And we won't go into that today. But when you can take something like your own chakra system and cause them to become stimulated by greater light, as we've discussed in its different manifestations, that chakra will go at a higher speed, and at a high enough speed, it goes exponential. You go through initiation. And okay, so let's look at the next one. And just before we actually animate it, here you have, actually, there's 3 main points to this, but as you'll see, there's many subsidiary points. And this is what Tesla meant on one level. He was a brilliant man and went far beyond my pay grade, but this is what he meant by, if you study the 3, 6, the 9, you will understand all kinds of things about creation in the hidden realms of spirit than simply reading a book. So these points, these nodal points, symbolize the 3 aspects of deity, Atma, Buddhi, and Manas, or the 3 aspects of the mind, or the lower mind, the personality, the lower personality mind, the lower astral body, and the person in the lower physical etheric. So see what happens when it reaches a certain speed. No, it's good. It's a prelude to another animation. Just continue and we'll be good. Okay, small mishap here. We're going to have to go to another animation, and I've got them out of order, but this will be a follow-up on triangles and spherical motion. So if you could just pull up the grand panorama here, my dear. Okay, and it would be must be okay. I apologize. We're going to have to skip this animation and we'll present it in another presentation. Okay, so moving along. This is a beautiful quote by TK. It's called The Principle of Mutation. And this is from Initiation Human and Solar, page 28. No, I'm sorry, that's you. I don't have the reference here, sorry. An inexplicable principle of mutation exists in the mind of the Logos, or the deity of our soul, our system, and governs all his actions. We see but the ever-changing forms and catch glimpses of the steady, evolving life within those forms, but as yet have no clue to the principle which works through the shifting kaleidoscope of solar systems, rays, hierarchies, planets, planes, schemes, rounds, races, and sub-races. They interweave, interlock, and interpenetrate each other. And utter bewilderment is ours as the wonderful pattern they form unfolds before us. We know that somewhere in that scheme, we, the human hierarchy, have our place. All, therefore, that we can do is to seize upon any data that seems to affect our own welfare and concerns our own evolution. And from the study of the human being in the three worlds, seek to understand somewhat the macrocosm. We know not how the one can become the three becomes the seven, and so proceed to inconceivable differentiations. To human vision, this interweaving of the system forms an unimaginable complexity, the key to which seems not to be forthcoming. Seen from the angle of a master, we know that all proceeds in ordered sequence. Seen from the angle of divine vision, the whole will move in harmonious unison, producing a form of geometric accuracy. Okay, here's another beautiful quote. We used it last presentation, but it's worth a repeat, by H.P. Blavatsky. The radiant light of the universal magnetic ocean, whose electric waves bind the cosmos together in their ceaseless motion, penetrate every atom and molecule of the boundless creation. So what we're alluding to and hopefully demonstrating in some small way is the intuition, not just the higher mind building on the lower mind, always to have a firm scaffolding where you can launch yourself into the intuition. And this image is an example. Now, it might perplex a few people if I say this could be demonstrating the rays and the planes in their actual organic and natural state. Yes, I could blow this up. I can enlarge it and say, okay, this is the first ray red, second ray blue, third ray green, fourth ray yellow, etc. But I want you to get a sense of the organicness of it. And another quote from White Magic: energy is a life fluid circulating throughout the entire body of the logos and vivifying, therefore, even the tiniest atom in that whole. It is valuable to endeavor to grasp the picture and to vision the wonder of what is transpiring. If when you leave this presentation, if you haven't felt a sense of wonder, then I have miserably failed. And because this is a whole new way of looking at the rays and the planes and the principles and the laws, which, yes, require a firm, well-articulated base, because we don't want to jump from the lower mind into some astralism. We want to be inspired by the high astral that takes us into the Buddhic plane of unconditional love, and that is our goal. Okay, now we're going to have another quote from, I think, we are going to talk about the term Alea and the 7
Okay,
rays. Okay, if there's any
sorry.
comments, please share them.
Yeah, Risa says Principles of Mutation is on page 5 of Initiation Human and Solar.
Excellent. That is the 5th ray in action. And I know that Risa has many, many other fine rays, so I don't want to just pin you on the 5th ray, but that is perfect. Thank you.
Heidi says shows the interpenetration of the life.
Yes. We need to see that we're looking through something rather than at something. And the through has many dimensions. Excellent.
Risa says a sense of wonder. And then Maria says, I love this way of seeing the rays. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria, because your love and your joy is all of our love and joy. And I talk about the importance of what the individual has to do, but it is the group that creates on the inner planes the potency behind all of what you've seen. It's like stepping outside of your personal self only to step back into the spiritual self, a sort of short going away to a full returning. Okay, any additional comments before we go on to Alea?
Nope.
Alea has multiple meanings, as we're going to demonstrate, but historically it really symbolizes a great swan whose arched wings hover over the illusions of manifestation, hovers and shifts and becomes the world swan, the swan maiden, the swan song of life and death. Into this world there came the swan of heaven, forefathers of all swans, mother of all races, cherished emblem of many people. There is hardly a race on earth that does not have tales of swan beings or rituals in recognition of their sacredness. Few there are who have not heard the various told stories about the changeling powers of this great aerial creature. As a symbol, the swan transcends all levels of understanding and yet reminds the smallest child to have faith in growth and fruition. It is an extremely complex symbol of transcendence, of spirit in the world, of cycles and creations. And before we do the animation, another quote by Blavatsky. It's often referred to as the ocean of eloquence, the great bird of enlightenment that flies beyond time and space. HPB wrote, "What is the belief of the inner esoteric schools?" The reader may ask. What are the doctrines taught on the subject by the esoteric Buddhist? With them, Alaya has a double and even a triple meaning. In the Yoga Shara system of the contemplative Mahayana school, Alaya is both the universal soul, anima mundi, and the self of a progressed adept. Quote, he who is strong in the yoga can introduce at will his or hers alaya by means of meditation into the true nature of existence. The alaya has an absolute eternal existence. And now I'm going to show you, before we do the animation, just one additional comment. This image is the 7 rays seen as a bird in flight. And when I first did this in Adobe Photoshop, I thought, wow, this is a new take on the 7 rays. From one point of view, the 7 rays can look like a mountain. From another point of view, it reminds me of the wings of a bird. And then later, I came across all these references to the swan, Alaya the swan, and I thought, wow, that is a beautiful, beautiful complement or correspondence. And so what you're going to see next is Alaya coming out of the 7 rays rhythmically with its wings, but its wings are ray energies, plane expressions, and all of your different bodies that right now are in motion and demand recognition by something on the material plane. if we go back to that animation and just pause it for a second, I want to share a few thoughts and then we're going to open it up to any shares. Well, it doesn't, oh, okay. Okay, can you freeze it there, my dear? Perfect. Excellent. Freeze it. Yes. One of the things that I have observed working with Tauruses is that all of this historical sharing about devas and angelic lives are often the result of someone who's developing clairvoyance and they're looking into a sphere that's in motion and the light is reflecting off the walls of the torus, and this is what you see. You see this alternating undulation, which is, we can say that's the deva or that's the angel, and yet all angelic and devic lives are spherical, but they can manifest according to our level of development, according to our different levels of background in previous experience. We often anthropomorphize and give them human qualities of faces and bodies. And I'm not saying this is not accurate, but it's often the predisposition of the observer. Because when the observer sees these saving forces that are coming with the externalization of the hierarchy, they are definitely rays and inhabit planes that are circular, spherical, and conform to this undulating organic. They're like electrical fire that's elasticity of them, in that they can sort of take any form that you want on one level, but in their natural habitat, their divine geometry, color, sound, as we have outlined. Excellent. So we're moving along here and we're going to wrap this up. So are there any comments or shares that anybody would like to make?
We have a couple of comments here. Let me go back to the beginning. Okay. I think it was Risa. Yeah. Risa asked where the first Malaya quote came from. If you can pull up that source, that would be good.
I'll send it to you privately because I'll have to research that. And I apologize for not having that resource, that link. Thank you, Risa.
If you send it to me, I can add it to the chat.
Oh, I can't do it right now.
Yeah, I understand. I understand.
But I will get it to everyone.
Okay. Andy says synchronicity at its purest. Yum.
Yes.
And then
Yums.
as the video was going on, Joe says the Sabian symbol for today's eclipse is an eagle turns into a dove.
Wow, that's beautiful. Yes, the white eagle of the north that flies above all the dross of the world and connects with the dove, which brings goodwill, right human relations, the second ray into manifestation for world healing. That's beautiful. Thank you.
Andy says, thanks for the splendor of my new visions. And again, we'll have these recordings that Duane has shown us. We'll have them separated out so you can just go to them afterwards when you view the recordings. Magda says the bird's language or flight out of time and space, therefore, is the alaya, the music of the spheres. So we're talking about the Damasco experience, initiation, maybe the third one, or the cosmic Christ.
The road to Damascus, I assume, is Paul having his revelation. And yes, I would say it's the third initiation. It can relate to any initiation, but I would think very powerfully that it does relate to the third initiation. And DK does say about birds that they are the intermediaries from the Deva evolution to the human evolution. And they often arrive and do odd sorts of behavior when there's a shift in energy, or maybe like a prophetic statement attempting to be shared, but it has to be the key has to be turned. The bird, at least not the ones I know, don't speak English or other languages, so they come and they bring awareness, or they bring the bridge, the partial bridge that we have to finish in our meditations.
Heidi says, wow, it shows the arrow of direction, the waves. What a wondrous bird, directing itself through itself. Thank you. Speaks directly to the heart.
Thank you.
Risa says the Buddhist term alaya, meaning storehouse consciousness. Alaya means abode or dwelling, abode, I'm sorry, or dwelling in its original Sanskrit.
Yes, thank you, Risa.
Lenny says the waves are the Aquarian undulations too.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Lenny. And thank you, Lenny, for sharing all the beautiful music that you have over the years.
Anna says, fantastic, the ropes of angels.
Yes, and we must rope them in. They are there to heal the planet, but unless we learn their language, to go back to all of the presentations that I make, and we explore color, sound, geometry, different qualities of light, vibrational frequencies. This is the new language of the age of Aquarius we're moving into. And when we can link with these angels and Davic lives, liberation for the individual, the group, and eventually humanity will be at hand.
And Catherine says, so inspiring and elevating. What a compilation. Thank you, Duane, and all the co-hosts.
Thank you, my dear Catherine. Okay, if there's not any additional comments, we'll finish and close with the one that I'm going to be using and have used at each closing, and it relates to the divine man or woman. And I just want to make a comment about this for a second. We are now historically at a period of great crises, and I've mentioned the importance of aligning the centers and increasing the bodies with light and all the things that we've discussed. And I would like the group at this closing meditation to take this onto a more planetary level. And after you do your individual invocation or alignment, whether it's spontaneous or something you do regularly, include in this closing animation a visual of all this beautiful light that we have generated and the light that Tulia and the group she's works with prior to this presentation all come together, and we send it out into the planet with particular emphasis on the Middle East and Ukraine without focusing on any individual person, just the soul of those countries, Palestine, actually the whole Middle East, because it's a hot spot for potential crises, and send this light down on a soul level. And this is our responsibility. This is our payment for what we receive. So thank you. And let's proceed with the closing meditation. The divine
Okay,
man
hold it
or
just one.
woman. Okay.
All
Any
right.
final?
Anna added something right as you got ready to start this. She says
That's fine.
a Laya center, uh, not, and that's two words, a Laya center, could be conceived as a cosmic vortex through which the logos from superior spheres of consciousness pours down its creative energy into the lower spheres, thus animating, inspiring, and breathing into its own essence or substance into the lower parallel universes.
Beautiful. And like several other comments, it's equally as occultly accurate as poetic. It inspires the emotions and it stimulates the mind to understand what those higher and lower relationships are. In fact, DK says Laya Yoga, which is a subsidiary yoga of esoteric astrology, along with triangles, will reach a very high point of development in the new age of Aquarius that we're going into. That Laya Yoga was unfortunately used in Atlantean times just for self development, for what an individual could get and then use often in black magic. This time around, Laya Yoga is the individual developing their centers to enrich the group. And then further down the evolutionary path, the group itself will use its major centers of expression. And I would say with this group, and this is just a very superficial statement, because I think this group works with all 7 of the rays, but I really feel that second ray and that 7th ray really powerfully. And also the 5th ray, wanting to get it right this time, because we've all been down this path before. And yes, we may have made progress, but this time it's going to become more scientific and it will be speeded up because of that. So thank you.
And then we got a couple more comments. Michael Stacy says, radiatory healing for the planet.
Yes. And those of you who are esoteric healers know radiatory healing is from the heart. And Michael, you speak with great authority because you have so much of that quality that the world needs at this time. So keep the eye alert and the heart open. Thank you.
And then Risa says, the Mideast is said by the Tibetan to be the solar plexus of the world, and it must be lifted up to the heart. This is the reorientation that is attempting to happen at this time.
Excellent. Thank you.
And Vivian says the Essenes in Israel leading to the birth of Jesus communicated morning and evening with the angels.
We are not alone. That's a beautiful statement. We have many more resources at our disposal if we want to learn the language of those who cannot speak our language.
Stefan has done some you have to look at the comments, has done some very creative things with emojis. I like it, including the donut there and the music and the
Ah,
prayers in the
yes,
hands
the cosmic
and the
donut.
earth and the sun. Yeah.
The cosmic
And
donut we're all biting into. Okay, thank
right.
you.
Joel, Joel says, thank you for mentioning the Middle East. Love and light to the entire, um, he says reason, but I think she probably meant region. May all wake up to the reality of their soul. Let's help facilitate that. And
Excellent.
that's the end
Thank
of
you.
the comments right now.
Excellent. So we will proceed now to the animation. The divine man or woman.
Up one more, and this is going to be the last one. If you're typing now, stop. It is
Yep.
also important to identify and send healing energies to the Islam population and not directly connected to Hamas and the issue of our solar plexus global dynamic,
Yes,
global
good
energy
point.
dynamic.
And that's why I mentioned that we send it to the soul ray of these different countries, and it will be distributed as needed. Okay. Thank you all for coming. We send our light and love, and may peace prevail on earth.
We have some more comments in the chat. Many are thank yous and some are some good comments. So I will be posting the chat messages so you all have an
Oh,
opportunity.
thank you.
If you missed anything,
Yes, that's perfect.
that you can catch it.
Thank you,
Okay, and I'll
BL,
try
so
and
much, and Michael and Rose.
I'll try and add the images that several people put in there because there were some beautiful images that went with the comments and stuff. So
Did you download them?
I did.
Okay, cool. I did too. I could send them to you. So
Yeah.
you've
Yeah, I
'em.
got it.
You're
Thanks,
good.
Michael. Okay, I think you have to top it, Michael, right?
I will.
Thank you as always, Duane and Rose.
Thank you so much, BL.
Big love to all.